The meeting's now recording, so I'll take this adherent to my roll call. Councillor Anderson, you're here, as is Councillor Bradley. Councillor Chalmers. Councillor Convery is here. Councillor Cooper, Councillor Craig and Councillor Dorman. Councillor Fagan.
I'm here, Pauline.
Thank you. Councillor Horn.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Hose is here. Councillor LeBlond is here. Councillor McAdams is here, as is Councillor McCallan. Councillor McClymont is here. Councillor McCreary also. Councillor MacDonald. Councillor McGeever is here. Councillor McLachlan.
Here.
Councillor Nealon's here. Councillor Nelson. Nothing
Here,
from
Pauline. I'm here.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Thank you. Councillor Ross. Nope, nothing from Councillor Ross. Councillor Scott is here. Councillor Stevenson. Nothing from Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Watson is here. Councillor Wilson.
I'm here.
Thank you. So just going back to double check. Councillor Ross. No. And Councillor Stevenson. Nope. Councillor Devlin, I understand that you're substituting for Councillor Walker.
Pauline.
Yes.
It's Alan Faulkner. I'm substituting for, well, it's supposed to be Maureen, but it must be Margaret Walker.
That's great. Thank you very much, Councillor Faulkner. I've made a note of that. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand back to you to continue the meeting.
Okay, thanks. Is there any declarations of interest?
Councillor Dorman has raised her hand, as has Councillor McClymont.
Okay, we'll take Councillor Dorman first then, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have to declare an interest in the agenda item 8 as I'm a member of Friends of Stonehouse Park.
Okay, thank you. And who else?
It was Councillor McClymont. Yep, Councillor McClymont.
Yep.
Hi, Chair. Can I declare an interest in item 10? I'm a member of the Lanark Community Development Trust, who are part of the vision. Thank you. Okay. I'll say that I'm on there as part of the council representation.
Right, thanks. Okay, so going to agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. Is there any issues arising from the minutes of the previous meeting?
Councillor Fagan has his hand raised, Chair.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, just very briefly, in relation to the item on the award of the Business Gateway contract, I think I appreciate the information that was sent out subsequently to the meeting. It's just for the benefit of the committee. I have asked Audit Scotland to comment on that, and I'll share that when I receive a response. And the other issue that I just thought would be useful to raise that arises from the meeting is that it was a very heavy and very productive agenda in relation to town centres, and I thought it might be useful for the committee to receive some kind of update on that, to see how the various bids and the various initiatives were proceeding. If not at this meeting, then certainly at a future meeting, just so that we can monitor progress. So those were the only 2 points.
I'm sure Michael will take that on board, Joe, and produce a report at a further meeting.
Chair, Councillor McGlynn has his hand raised.
Okay.
Sorry, Michael McGlynn, sorry.
That's all right.
Going back a few years, sorry.
I haven't heard that for a wee while.
Oh, I know.
Is
Absolutely.
that you've been demoted, Michael?
I'll plead the fifth on that, if you don't mind. Of course, Councillor Fagan will bring an update report back in May. I think it's on the next committee meeting, so happy to do that, Chair.
Okay. Can we agree then that this is an accurate record of the minutes of the last meeting?
Agreed.
Okay, thanks. We'll go on to agenda item number 3. I invite Louise Harvey to speak to this agenda item.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide information on the actual revenue expenditure against the budget for the period the 1st of April through to the 1st of January 2021, which is period 10 of the financial year. This is the third report represented to committee for the financial year 2021, and the resource has now completed its formal probable outturn exercise for the year, where we've identified the expected spend to the 31st of March, and details are outlined in section 5, which I'll come on to. We continue to outline the specific costs incurred in relation to the resources COVID response to date. So the financial implications are outlined at paragraph 5, where firstly we show the outturn position for the resource, and following that we show the position to date at period 10 to the 1st of January. So paragraph 5.1 outlines the forecast outturn for the resource to the end of March, with a projected overspend of 8.722 million before our contributions to reserves. And Community Enterprise is proposing to transfer 447,000 to reserves at the year end to meet ongoing commitments, leaving a projected overspend of 9.169 million. And these reserve contributions were approved last week at the Executive Committee on the 10th of February. The forecast cost of COVID for the resource for the year is 9.199 million. A few component parts to that, but firstly, the new expenditure costs of 5.701 million are outlined in Appendix G, and these relate to increased staff costs associated with the support for our COVID response, additional costs from increased domestic waste tonnage, the costs of additional fly tipping costs, traffic management and security at our civic amenity sites, additional fleet costs, and the costs of additional PPE and enhanced cleaning regimes. And included within this resource position is the 1.269 approved contribution to South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture for the loss of income, and we've obviously been reporting that for the last few reports. In addition, the resource is projecting a significant impact as a result of loss of income due to the pandemic of 4.811 million, and this includes parking charges, planning building standards applications, income from care of gardens and school meals, as well as savings not achieved across the resource of 100,000 and an underspend in our budget of 1.143 million. And this in the main is because expenditure wasn't incurred in relation to the food costs associated with the school meal service. The core budget has a minor underspend reflecting the activities of the resource across the year, including underspends in our employee costs offset by an overspend in fleet service and the costs of waste contracts. So the resource position is represented in Appendix A, and the specific transfers to reserves are detailed at the bottom of Appendix B, C and E for each of the relevant service areas that are making a contribution to reserves. Paragraph 5 turns to the position as at the 1st of January with an overspend of 5.875 million against the phased budget, and the period 10 position after the approved transfers now are taken into account as an overspend of 6.227 million. So the individual variance explanations for each of the services are outlined in the appendices relevant for each area. We do have our standard budget variants proposed. Again, these are at the bottom of the appendices B to F, and these reflect updates to the Community Enterprise budget from the last report to committee from the 11th of September through to the 1st of January, and they cover several main areas: transfers to and from reserves to meet our expenditure commitments, budget that we've received in respect of government grant, mostly for environmental health officers, electric vehicles and the business support grants that we're processing and issuing. Creation of budget to reflect other external income and service delivery changes, as well as transfers from reserves to reflect COVID service requests, mostly from education for enhanced cleaning, and also corporate funding for utilities. So if I can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the forecast to the 31st of March of an overspend of 9.169 million after the approved transfers is noted, and that an overspend of 6.227 million after the approved transfers to reserves is noted, and that this in the main relates to the Community Enterprise pressures associated with its COVID response. And again, the standard proposed budget variants as set out in Appendix B to F of the report are approved. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Louise. Any questions on agenda item number 3?
Chair, there are no hands raised.
Okay, thanks. Can we, well, I'll move the report.
I'll second it.
Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Great.
Okay, thank you. We're going to agenda item number 4. I'll invite Lorraine to take us through this agenda item.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon. This again is the standard capital budget monitoring report for the resource, and it's the third report for this current year. And the purpose of the report is to provide an update on the annual budget and the level of spend to the 1st of January, which is our accounting period 10. And also for the first time this year, we'll give you a level of predicted spend for the financial year as a whole, taking us to the end of March. Section 3 gives committee the background and explains how the budget's been set. So that's the revised programme that we noted at this committee back in November, plus adjustments that were agreed at the Executive Committee in December 2020. And between the two of those, it's taken the Community and Enterprise Resources programme for the current year to 37.622 million. Section 5 of your report details the financial implications, with further information included in Appendix A across the services. And again, the appendix shows you the movements in the programme since the last report to committee. Section 5.1 notes that the total programme for the year is the 37.622, and as at the 1st of January, we've spent 17.349 million. Section 5.2 notes the outturn position against that budget, and we have spend projections of 35.2 million, so that's an underspend of 2.4 million in the current year. Now, the majority of that is in relation to the timing of spend across a number of projects where the budget is required in the next financial year rather than this one. The progress of a number of projects has been impacted on by the lockdown due to COVID-19, and the main projects affected are detailed in Section 5.3 for your information. In addition, Section 5.4 goes on to explain that 300,000 of the underspend relates to savings achieved in projects already completed under this year's roads investment programme. And at last week's Executive Committee on the 10th of February, it was approved that that funding would be carried forward into 21-22 and used to undertake additional projects in the next financial year. Finally, Section 5.5 details that the underspends in Sections 5.3 and 5.4 have been offset by additional spend in relation to the Green Hills Road project. And again, that's a timing issue only, with funding for the overall project spend already identified. So if we can refer committee back to the recommendations in Section 2 of the report, that the Community and Enterprise Resources budget of 37.622, spend to date of 17.349, and the outturn for the financial year of 35.2 be noted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine. Any questions on agenda item number 4?
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay, I'll move the report.
I'll second it.
Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Okay, on to agenda item number 5. I'll ask Elaine to speak to this one.
Thank you, Chair. Members will know this is the standard workforce monitoring report, which is prepared by personnel, and the purpose of the report is to provide committee with an update on the employment information for the period of October to December last year. You will see Section 4.1 outlines the resource absence figure for December 2020, which was 5.9%, and that represents a decrease of 0.7 when compared to the previous month, although is 0.3% higher than the council-wide figure. Based on these absence figures at December and the annual trends, the projected annual average for the resource for 2021 is 5.3%, and that's compared to the council-wide average of 4.4%. You will note that it's noted in this report that the absence figures contained in the report include those absences related to COVID-19, and at the time of the report being written, the council's absence percentage was 6%, with 2.11 related to COVID for sickness and special leave. I can update committee that as of the 10th of February, that figure changed slightly, and the council's absence percentage is 4.65%, with 1.53% related to COVID absences, both for special leave and sickness. Moving on to Section 4.2, you will see there were 290 occupational health referrals made during this period, which is a decrease of 83 when compared to the same time last year. Section 4.3 details that there were 16 accident and incident reports recorded within the resource. Again, this is showing a decrease of 14 when compared to the same period of last year. Section 4.4 outlines employee relations activity during the period for the resource, and you'll see that there were 6 disciplinary hearings held during that period. Section 4.5 details the analysis of leavers, and you'll see at Appendix 2 there were 31 leavers during the period eligible for an exit interview, with 8 exit interviews taking place. Section 4.7 shows that 190 employees left employment in total, but with 52 relating to the end of fixed term contracts, and the remaining 138 showing that they were being replaced. And I would just refer committee back to Section 2 within the report and ask to approve the recommendation to note the employment information for the resource for October to December last year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Elaine. Is there any questions on agenda item number 5?
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay, I'll move the report.
I'll second it.
Can we agree with the report?
Agreed.
Okay, we move on to agenda item number 6, and I invite Gordon Mackay to present this agenda item.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is threefold. Firstly, to provide an update on the physical progress of the project in terms of installing EV charging units. Secondly, to seek agreement to some proposed changes to the terms of the agreement. And thirdly, to note the intention to explore potential charging arrangements going forward. As Section 3 notes, the transport sector is the biggest contributor to carbon emissions in Scotland, and it further notes that at the meeting of 4th February 2020, the committee approved that we enter into an agreement together with our partners in Transport Scotland, Scottish Power Energy Networks and NLC North Lanarkshire Council. Section 4 provides an update in progress, and 4.2 confirms that despite COVID-related delays, we expect to complete the installation programme in spring of this year. Details of progress and specific charging provision at individual locations is provided at Appendix 1, and Appendix 2 provides a visual of what these units look like. In terms of numbers, as 4.6 notes, prior to this project starting, we had 44 public-facing charging units. This project will increase provision to 108 such units, an increase of 64, and we have a further 18 chargers in the pipeline via a separate funding stream to take total provision in the short term to 126 units. 4.8 notes the selected sites were considered as part of an option appraisal exercise, and members were advised on 5th of August last year of the 20 identified locations across the council, and 4.9 notes some relatively minor changes to these original proposals. In terms of necessary changes to the current agreement, 4.12 notes that the EU Clean Energy Package came into effect on the 1st of January 2021 and has now been transferred into UK law. In relation to EV charging infrastructure, this means that a licensee, in this case Scottish Power Energy Networks, must not own, develop, manage or operate a vehicle charging point. And these new provisions have now been added to Scottish Power Energy Networks licence from the 1st of January 2021. The consequence of this is that it's proposed to accelerate ownership transfer of these units from Scottish Power Energy Networks to the councils. This is not considered to have significant implications given that the installation contract includes a 5-year maintenance period, hence there are no cost implications for either council in the short to medium term. On the third issue of potential charging, Section 6 notes that increasing financial pressures on the council as a consequence of providing currently free energy via these units. Prior to this project, we had 44 charging units, as has been mentioned, and that had an annual electricity cost in the region of 25,000. We anticipate this will rise to around 160,000 with the conclusion of this project and these charging units coming online. Across Scotland, the developing model for electric vehicle charging is expected to involve a connection charge and a charge/tariff per kilowatt hour of energy used. To date, it has been considered that in the short term at least, electricity should continue to be provided free to users, as this will encourage the uptake of EVs. While this approach has merit, it is also necessary to consider options for a more proportionate solution, where those who benefit from the use of public EV charging infrastructure pay appropriate energy costs. Consequently, it's proposed that officers will, over the next 6 months, explore options for cost recovery for the use of EV charging infrastructure. So, returning to Section 2, committee is asked to firstly note the content of the report and progress in this project. Secondly, agree that the necessary arrangements to facilitate the transfer of ownership of these units be progressed. And finally, note the intention, given the increasing cost pressures, to look at the potential to charge for the use of these units. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. Any questions on agenda item number 6?
Councillor Nealon, Chair.
Lynn?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to trot out the time-worn phrase that I actually welcome this report. It's gratifying that South Lanarkshire are one of the 2 authorities that have been picked for it. Just well done on stepping up to the mark. Looking forward to these charging units to coming online. Just one question though, when you're talking about charging people ultimately for the power that they're using, will that be, will you be looking at turning a profit on this, or is it going to be basically at cost?
At the moment, we're simply looking at options. So anything that we considered or identified in terms of options would be for members to consider further.
Thank you.
Okay, you happy with that, Lynn?
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions?
No further hands, Chair.
I'll move the report.
I'll second it.
We agree the report.
Agreed.
Go on to agenda item number 7, which is the start of the Pauline Elliott show. And I'll ask Pauline to speak to this report.
Thanks, Chair. Members may recall that just over 2 years ago, and following requests from the communities and elected members, and following a period of scrutiny work by the Rural Task Force, you agreed to make some changes to the Renewable Energy Fund to include the introduction of a micro grant scheme, similar to one already operated by the Clyde Wind Farm. The microgrant scheme was introduced in February 19, and we undertook to come back to committee after 2 years and update you with progress, and that is in essence this report. The microgrant scheme makes grants of up to £5,000 available to community councils and other constituted bodies within 10 kilometres of a wind farm for small projects of up to £500 in that community council area. And it's via a streamlined application process. Chairman, the results of the microgrants are detailed in your report in sections 4.2 and 4.3, and you notice that the microgrants paid out 155,000 in 1920 and 83,583 in 2021. And a full list of all the awards is attached as an appendix to your report. Chairman, I have to report that the lower amount paid out in this financial year was around the inability of the community councils to meet due to the COVID pandemic, and also that the clubs and organisations which would be the recipients of the grants also couldn't meet. As part of our review of the microgrants, we conducted a survey, and that's set out in section 4.6 of your report, where 11 community councils and groups replied. All the replies were positive, and all the organisations involved thought that the microgrant scheme had been successful and was worthwhile. 2 of the 11 participants in the survey asked for the grants to be increased up to a £1,000 grant. We're not recommending that to the committee chairman because of the simplified application process and the fact this is public money. It's not considered appropriate to use the simplified process for the smaller awards. But of course, any project wishing to benefit from an award larger than £500 has the option to go to the regular Renewable Energy Fund for funding. Therefore, Chairman, we're asking you to agree the recommendations in section 2 of your report, and also that from now on we report on the microgrant scheme alongside our annual report on the main Renewable Energy Fund. Thanks, Chair.
And I just managed to get connected now, Pauline, to hear your deliverance of that there, so things seems to be working fine. Any questions for Pauline on agenda item number 7?
No hands, Chair.
Okay, thanks. I'll move the report.
I'll second it.
Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. We're going to the second part of Pauline's show, agenda item number 8. Pauline, Isabel, you've declared an interest. Okay, is Isabel out?
Councillor Dorman has left.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Pauline.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I mean, as members are aware, from our Renewable Energy Fund, grant awards of less than £20,000 are delegated to officers, but grant awards of more than £20,000 have to come to committee for approval. And this report is asking you to approve 3 grants today. They're detailed in the recommendation and also details of the grants, the assessment and intervention amounts is detailed in section 4 of your report. So the 3 grants to the Whiteley Accessibility Project, the Little Sparta Trust and the Friends of Stonehaven Park. So subject to you agreeing the grant awards and intervention, we'd ask you to agree the awards as detailed in the recommendation section 2 of your report. Thanks, Chair.
Chair, you're muted.
No, after waiting to get in, then I'll go and mute myself. Any questions on agenda item number 8?
Councillor Cooper, Chair.
Margaret?
Thanks, John. It's Stonehouse Park, Pauline. It's not Stonehaven. It's Stonehouse.
Oh.
The other question I had was a note on the grant application that there are several other grants applied for in regard to this project, but none of those have been secured. How does that work in terms of this money? Is it on the basis of securing the other grants?
Yes, Councillor Cooper, it's subject to the match funding being in place, and I do apologise for the Stonehaven. My daughter and son-in-law have just bought a house in Stonehaven, so that was obviously in my mind when I was writing the report. So well spotted, Councillor Cooper.
Okay.
You're planning a trip, Pauline. You're planning a trip.
I wish, Councillor Cooper.
No, not yet. Just hold fire on that. Any trips?
Thanks,
Any other
John.
questions?
No further hands raised, Chair.
Okay, I'll move that report.
I'll second it, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Could we invite Isabel back to the meeting, please?
Do that now, Chair.
Margaret Cooper, you still with your hand up. Is that a legacy hand? Thanks, Margaret.
Chair, we're calling Councillor Dorman, but she doesn't appear to be back in yet.
Oh.
I'll try it again.
If you try that, we'll move on with the meeting if that's fine with everybody else. We're going to agenda on item number 9, Pauline.
Thanks, Chair. Committee, you're aware that the Council operates a conservation area renewable scheme in Straven with Historic Environment Scotland funding to regenerate the town centre and the conservation area in Straven. The project is delivered via a partnership of council and community organisations, and the community organisations are listed in section 3.4 of your report. In this report, you're asked to approve 2 grants for the repair and maintenance of 2 properties in Straven, the first at 1 Green Street and the second at 29 to 31 Common Green, to enhance external fabric and improve the streetscape. Section 4 of the report sets out the detail of the tenders for the work and the intervention rates, and you will note that the applicants also have to pay a share of the project. Consequently, Chairman, we're asking the committee to approve the funding as set out in the recommendations of section 2 of your report. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Pauline. Any questions?
Councillor Dorman's back.
Okay, welcome back. Any questions on agenda item number 9? Margaret Cooper, you your hand up, Margaret?
I have, John, just a couple of quick questions. Pauline, did this project start out, when it originally started out, was the paperwork completed on paperwork, and if it was, when did it move to an online system of applying? And the second question is, what's the cut-off date for the last applications being able to be made?
Pauline?
I think I'm going to have to get back to you on the first one, Chair. I'm not entirely sure when the application process changed over, so I'll find out that information and get back to you if that's all right. We haven't got a formal cut-off date, and we'll have to start looking at that now. As you know, due to the COVID pandemic, the scheme's been extended for a year. It was going to be ending in March this year. We've now got an extra year, and we do think that we'll be able to get the money spent. We've got about £120,000 left in the pot, but our expressions of interest actually exceed that. So assuming everybody that's expressed an interest applies, might actually be oversubscribed, but that's unlikely, but it is looking as if we will spend the money. And again, I'll get back to you on the cut-off date, but I think we'll probably be looking for final applications coming in about at the turn of the year, so that we have time to process them for the end of March 22 cut-off date. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Pauline. Just a subsidiary there. There's a company that say they applied and filled in all the paperwork, Pauline, and that seems to have disappeared down a hole, and now they've got to start again and do an online application. I wondered if all that had happened around the time that Stuart had left.
I'm not aware, Councillor Cooper, but if you can give me details of that organisation, we can certainly look into it for you.
Thanks, Pauline. I'll email you.
Cheers.
Okay. Any other questions?
No further hands, Chair.
I'll move the report.
Second it.
Okay, can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. We'll go on to the final one of Pauline's show, although we've got some after that. Agenda item number 10. And Cathy, you've declared an interest in this. If you could leave the meeting, please.
That's me.
Pauline, can we just confirm that?
Yeah, I can confirm that Councillor McClimont has left.
Okay, thank Pauline Elliott this time.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Lanark Community Development Trust is acting on behalf of a partnership in Lanark comprising the Trust, the Business Investment District known as Discover Lanark, the New Lanark Trust and the Scottish Wildlife Trust to prepare a vision for Lanark as a heritage-led regeneration strategy for the town. The partnership has commissioned consultants to prepare a report funded by Borders Biscuits. And the key themes of the document coming out of that work are highlighted in section 5.3 of your report, and a full copy can be made available to members on request. The partnership agreed a two-stage public consultation process, the first completed in October last year, and is now moving forward to prepare a delivery plan, and that's currently under preparation. The Partnership Steering Group has come to South Lanarkshire Council and invited them to become a former Vision Group partner with a senior officer represented on the board, and Council participation would also involve the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding. Chairman, our legal colleagues tell us that signing the Memorandum of Understanding, I need to put my tooth in, provided would cause no issues for the Council, as it does not take us out of our normal remit with regard to working in partnership with these organisations. Chairman, it must be recognised that the Council is already heavily involved in a number of partnership and regeneration activities in Lanark, and this collaboration and partnership activity is entirely compatible with work already underway and enables us to deal with and communicate with a range of partners in one forum. Consequently, we're asking the committee to read the recommendations in section 2 of your report, that an officer attend the partnership meetings, we sign the Memorandum of Understanding, and we note the progress on the Vision for Lanark strategy. Thanks, Chair.
Right, Pauline, take a well-earned rest now. Any questions on agenda item number 10 for Pauline?
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay, thank. I'll move the report.
I'll second it.
Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Great, thanks. Can we invite Cathy back into the meeting, please?
She's been invited just now.
Okay.
That's her back in.
Okay, thanks. Agenda item number 11 is for noting. Michael McGlynn is here if anybody's got any questions on it. Is there any questions on agenda item 11?
No hands raised, Chair.
I'll move it as it's for noting.
Second it.
Can we agree the report?
Agreed.
Agenda item number 12. I have no notification of any urgent business. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance. I just ask Pauline to stop the recording of the meeting now. Thank you.
Chair.
Stay safe, stay well.
Thanks,
See you.
Chair.